Well, I'm going back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, and I won't back down. No, I'm standing my ground. Won't be turned around. And I keep this world from dragging me around. I'm standing my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I won't back down, and I stand my ground. Well, I know what's right. Just got one life in a world that keeps me pushing me around. Well, I stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. This week, Farmer Joe's has bone-in New York strips, Key West shrimp, steelhead trout on sale, as well as blueberries, 2 pints for $5, or 1 pound packs of strawberries, 2 for $5. Everything you need in more, Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. We also want to give a special shout out to International Marble, a family-owned and operated business. If you want the job done right, call International Marble at 239-878-2200. That's 239-878-2200. They are truly wonderful people. I'm joined by attorney, businessman, political analyst, multimedia commentator. Mr. Ford O'Connell is here to help us understand the political ups and downs we're facing with the elections just a few months away. Welcome to Cracker Culture. I'm Smokin Joe. We want to thank you for watching. Please make sure right now you like, share, and follow, subscribe, and leave your comments. We want to hear from you and hear your opinions. Ford, it's good to see you. We've been on a short hiatus, but we're back and we got plenty of information I don't think people want to miss. So let's go ahead and get started, Ford. You mentioned debate preview. How consequential is this for both campaigns?
Well, look, there's a reason why we're having the earliest presidential debate in modern presidential history. It's because the Biden campaign is looking for a game changer. Donald Trump's leading in the national polling average. He's leading in all 6 swing states polling averages. You know, he is in pole position to win this race. And what the Biden campaign wants to do is really change the script. Look, normally I don't put a lot of, stock into presidential debates, but in this case I do. And here's why. This one's going to go on June 27th. The next one isn't until September. That's 11 weeks, and early voting is already going to start in some of the swing states. So this is kind of a make or break moment for the Biden campaign, and it's also a key moment for the Trump campaign. So this is a pretty consequential moment.
Well, I'm interested to see how it goes, but do you really think Biden will debate?
Well, here's what I think Biden's going to do. He's essentially going to try to make the entire debate about character. He's going to launch into things like January the 6th. He's going to talk about Trump's indictments. He's going to talk about abortion. He's probably going to lie and say Trump's going to cut Social Security. This is all about playing up character. I think that's a bad strategy, and the reason why is polling shows by 59% to 29% voters care more about issues than character.
Well, even the black vote has turned toward Trump. And I think it's all because the lack of faith in Biden's mental capacity to lead. And quite frankly, he scares me being in there just for the little bit of time he's got left.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's why basically at the end of every single answer that Trump gives, he has to say over and over that America's decline and the reason why your family's hurting is because of Joe Biden and Joe Biden's policies. And it's a very simple, question when you go into the voting booth. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And the answer is hell no. And that's what he's got to drive home. But remember, Joe, there's about 20% out there, according to the latest Reuters poll, that essentially say they don't know who they're going to vote for, or they may vote third party, or they may just stay home. And remember, we're talking about 6 states. We're talking about essentially about 20 to 25 counties in this country that are going to decide who the next president of the United States is.
Well, I don't see how anybody can honestly think that Biden is the better choice. And I don't see how we could go another 4 years and survive under the Biden policies. I just think that it's the ruination of the United States as we know it.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, look, when you look at inflation, Biden's solution is to keep spending. That's only going to drive inflation up. He has no intention whatsoever to secure the border, which endangers our national security, American citizens' lives, and also the migrants themselves. And when it comes to things like oil, natural gas, he's going to cut that off. And frankly, the world's on fire because of his policies are so bad in the Middle East and Ukraine. So you're right. If you want to make sure America's destroyed in under 4 years, vote for Joe Biden.
Well, and let me just ask you this. Do you think for a second that Russia would have ships off the coast of Florida if Trump was in office right now?
Absolutely not. And the reason why is because Trump would actually try to find a way to deal with Putin. And we already have a record of this. This is what everyone forgets. We didn't have any wars under Donald Trump. Now, let me tell you, that's a first in quite a long time under an American president. And frankly, when it comes to respect, whether it's Xi in China, Putin in Russia, they respect Donald Trump and they understand that if they cross a line, Donald Trump's going to punch back.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need a leader that's for America. And I don't even know that Biden's for anything but padding his family's pockets. And I mean, I just can't see no other benefit that Biden's done for the country.
Well, look, but that's the Democrats crave power. They want to make change. They want to turn America into a socialist republic. And essentially, here's what the Biden campaign's thinking for the next 6 months. We're going to gaslight America into believing that Trump is a super dictator and that if he is reelected, he'll get revenge on his political opponents. And that's why you have to vote for Joe Biden. They're going to try to say this is not a choice. You only have one choice. And they're going to lie. I mean, if you turn on MSNBC, CNN, which I know most people watching this podcast don't do, you will see the Democrats' game plan. It has nothing to do with helping your family or issues. It's all about slamming Donald Trump.
Well, I can tell you that I was doing a lot better in every sense of the word when Trump was president than I've done since Biden's been in office. I just have to say that.
Well, no question about it. Just look at the interest rates. Just look at the price of gas. Everything that Biden touches, frankly, turns to poop. And we all know that. And yet somehow you've got somebody with solutions. You've got somebody with a proven record. And somehow this is still a close race because essentially most of the mainstream media just lies to you.
Well, we've all seen the stumbling and bumbling that Biden's doing, seemingly posing like a mannequin. I mean, at certain events, like he's just there. He don't even move or blink or whatever. And the White House and the fake media is blaming Republicans, claiming it's all a cheap fake. Was it a cheap fake when Obama had to take him by the hand and lead him off the stage? Was it a cheap fake when he sat down like he was fixing to shit himself and Jill Biden had to tell him to stand back up? Where's the cheap fake for it? I want to know.
Cheap fakes are a mythical term. Let's understand that. There's a difference between deep fakes, which are AI-generated video, and cheap fakes. Cheap fakes basically means unedited video of Joe Biden screwing up. And the problem with every single time Joe Biden's in public is the American public recognizes we get closer and closer to Election Day that Joe Biden doesn't have the ability, the agility, or the mental acuity to serve America for another 4 years. Frankly, your lying eyes, or what you're seeing, is actually the truth about Joe Biden. And what the media and the Democrats are saying is, don't believe your lying eyes, because everything is fine with Joe Biden. Let me tell you, in 2020, it was the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation. Now it's, don't believe your eyes and Joe Biden's fine. I mean, these guys come up with a new scam every single election cycle.
Well, I got a little small clip of Biden, and to me, any world leader that would have done this would be embarrassment to the whole country. I want you to look at this and tell me how to explain this, Ford.
Will the lack of this, Mr. Will the lack of a war habit are you worried about the war? Are you worried about the war habit?
Now, what kind of mental breakdown is that? Is he speaking in tongues? I don't know what the hell he's trying to prove here.
Well, look, at least he didn't freeze and completely stop and look like he was having a stroke. I mean, this is the whole point about Joe Biden. He is not all there mentally, and he is not all there physically. Just watch him walk the Air Force One or Marine One, the helicopter. He's over there shuffling worse than my deceased 97-year-old grandfather. It's an embarrassment to this country, and he can't do anything about it. And they know it. That's why when it comes to this upcoming debate, essentially they're going to hop him up on some sort of elixir, and they're going to say, see, Joe Biden is fine. And we all know there's a reason why we don't see Joe Biden in public, because every time you see him in public, you realize he's not up to the job.
What's the real, now there's been several people saying certain things. What is the real chances that Michelle Obama runs for president?
Ask me that after this debate. After we have this debate on June 27th, we can have that discussion. But until then, Joe Biden is the nominee. That's why this is why Joe Biden has so much on the line. And it's why Republicans, particularly on TV and radio, should go out there and say, look, Joe Biden's been doing this for 50 years. He's a great debater. Drive up expectations, because the Democrats are busy driving down expectations, to the point that if Joe Biden basically doesn't collapse on that podium next week, essentially it'll somehow be a victory for Joe Biden.
Well, I want to ask you to explain. We've got two polls with very different results. Fox News national poll has Biden up by 2. However, the Iowa poll shows Trump way up by 18. Well, what's the real deal here?
Well, I think here's the key point. Let's talk about the Fox News national poll. It says that essentially Biden's up 2, which is the first time in a Fox News poll he's led since October of 2023. This is good polling news for Joe Biden. But when we dig into the numbers of this, there's a lot of good for Donald Trump. What's happened here is independents shifted from being 2 points for Donald Trump to being about 9 points for Joe Biden. And what you're seeing here is independents are starting to believe that the economy is getting better, and they're not necessarily, thanks to the mainstream media censorship, not seeing a lot about the border. It's Donald Trump's job to remind them of his record and the fact that all of their problems are caused by Joe Biden and his policies. The good thing is, within that poll, if you go to a 5-way race, which means all the third-party candidates are on there, Jill Stein, Cornel West, RFK Jr., then Donald Trump is up by 1. But, there's something else. It also tells you that voters are more concerned about issues than they are about character and integrity. And so in this case, it's good news for Joe Biden, but it doesn't mean he's going to win the election. And here's why. That's that Iowa poll you're talking about. Now, Iowa's not a swing state, but it says he's up by 18 points. To put that in perspective, in 2020, I believe that Trump won Iowa by 8 points, and in 2016, he won it by about 9.5 points. Now, you say, okay, 18. What's the point? It's showing you that Trump is playing offense and he's expanding the map, because Iowa voters are very much like the voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, the very voters in Minnesota who are going to decide this election. So this is a much better sign. And remember, The swing states decide who the next president of the United States is. National polls don't. But the point is, in a national poll, the rule of thumb is a Republican cannot get behind by more than 3 points in the national poll and hope to win the Electoral College. So right now, Trump's still the favorite.
Well, Ford, before we come home to Florida news, I want to discuss the deranged rants by the venomous and ignorant Joy Behar and Rachel Maddow. And I got a little clip just to show you what they said.
Let's hear from the View's Joy Behar talking with MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. They've both shared this fever dream about Trump coming to get them.
So you said recently that you thought that you, as an outspoken critic, could be a target yourself. Some people think that sounds overdramatic, but I'm right there with you. I think that he is so vindictive that he will go after, however he has to, through the IRS maybe, or even, through sponsors to get us off the air maybe, or you. Yeah. How seriously should we be taking that?
Look, if Trump can promise that if elected, he will remove Rachel Maddow and Joy Behar from the airwaves, then he may just win every state.
Hey, there you go. He might just win every state.
But look, I actually agree with that in a lighthearted way, that essentially if Trump made part of his platform to take the View off the air, he'd probably get 10 to 20 million more votes nationwide, because Lord knows that exchange between Joy Behar and Rachel Maddow is exactly why The View is the dumbest show on television. Okay, but let's be clear. Legally, can Trump take Joy Behar and The View off the air if he becomes the 47th president of the United States? No. Just as Joe Biden can't take Fox News off the air if he wanted to, because let me tell you something. If Joe Biden could take Fox News off the air, he would have already done it. Okay, so that's the legal part. But so the question is, why is Joy Behar saying such drivel and nonsense? And people say, well, that's just who Joy Behar is. That's not really what's going on here. What's going on here is that the Biden campaign has told all of their media surrogates and all of their network people and allies to basically continue to say every day, even if you're lying through your teeth, that Donald Trump is going to be super Hitler. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to condition the American voting electorate over the next 5 months that somehow Donald Trump is Hitler because Joe Biden can't talk about the issues, so we got to gaslight you into hating Trump.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think when you see people like Behar and Maddow, they're just stoking the fear fire that the left wants. They want everybody to be in fear. They don't want everybody to look at things rationally and what's actually happening. And all you got to do is look at the price of food, look at the price of mortgages, look at the price of rent, look at the price of gas. It don't take much to see we're in a shitty shape in America because of the left.
That's exactly right. I always say this. Look, Republicans may not be the answer to all of your problems, but Democrats, particularly this iteration, are the cause of all of your problems. And that's exactly right. But that's, we're in an era of, social media, absolute unconstrained emotion, and essentially the very small slice of voters who are going to decide this election don't really watch the news that much. They're not all that political. And hopefully, if they vote with their pocketbook, Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Well, let's just jump on over to the
man's trash
and see what's going on here in Lee County. Let's discuss the candidates who actually qualified. And Ford, I'm happy to see some new blood jumped in just before the deadline. I mean, I was nervous. I mean, several already won because they had no contention. Kevin Carnes won. Of course, Kevin Ruane won, because they had no contenders. Matt Caldwell is being challenged by a man named Steve Cunningham, who is a Republican. And I don't know much about Mr. Cunningham, but I'm glad to see that Matt Caldwell got an opponent.
Look, I think primaries are good. Let's remember, Lee County is heavily Republican. So there is no Democratic general election in most of these races. So therefore, if you want to make sure you keep the incumbents on the straight and narrow, they have to have challengers. And I think this is good for democracy. In particular, I think it's even better for Lee County to have challengers because at the end of the day, Republicans control Lee County and Republicans need to be working for Lee County voters.
Well, I totally agree. I know that Mike Caldwell had withdrew his name for running for committee man, and then that left Andrew's son and a couple others, and Cecil Pendergrass threw his name in the hat because Mike Caldwell pulled out. Well, once Mike Caldwell got a challenger for property appraiser, he decided he wanted to run for committee man again too, and I can only speculate that's the reason Cecil backed out. And if that's why Cecil backed out, look, look, me and Cecil talk, but that's, to me, that's just a chicken shit move on my opinion.
Look, I can't speak to why Cecil does what Cecil does in the case of this race, but I'll say this: just because you're part of the cabal doesn't mean you deserve a job. I mean, that's what's going on here. This becomes the incumbent Terry Miller protection program. That is what's going on here. Basically, well, Matt Caldwell could possibly lose. There's an outside chance, but we want to keep him in the fold and give him a job. So we're going to clear the way for committee man. I mean, this is insane. But this is how bad and how intertwined and incestuous politics is in Lee County.
Well, and I want to talk more about that because there's some challengers. I do want to talk about District 3. We have 3 candidates in District 3. Now, Terry Miller has...
this is District 3 County Commissioner.
Yes, District 3 County Commissioner. Terry Miller is supporting Dumping Dave Malika. And I want to ever understand, a vote for Malika is a vote against Florida. We've put out all the paperwork. He's still under investigation. He's been fined. He's a repeat offender of dumping toxic and chemical waste, and he has affected our groundwater and is leaking into the 10-mile canal and eventually into the Gulf. And I don't understand how he could do that. Now, in a move at the least is unethical, but it's kind of smart. Terry has Jake Cataldo, who has 0 chances, but Terry's afraid of Malika losing to Matthew Thornton. Now, this is a write-in candidate. Now, this happened once before, if I ain't mistaken, and people went to jail for this. This is kind of on the verge of being criminal, is it not?
Yeah, look, I have to look at the mechanics of this more closely, but to your point, the idea of running straw candidates, if you will, because that's what you're suggesting Jake is in this case, that's considered a no-no, and you can either be fined or you could be found guilty and sent to jail. It just depends how exactly, if you can prove that you're violating Florida election law. This is not a good thing, and people need to be aware of that, but I'm sure that Terry, as usual, probably has himself 2 cutaways away so that you can't prove it's actually Terry Miller running 2 candidates in the same race.
Well, like I said, I've reached out to a few attorneys that have told me that similar cases have been deemed illegal. And he's going to have to do a lot of work to make this look kosher for him.
Well, again, someone's got to raise it. The question, someone's got to point it out. So, Joe, I'd say do a little bit more research, and if there's someone to point it out, make sure they do it.
All right, so County Commissioner 5. We got the incumbent Mike Greedy Greenwell, who's facing off with Amanda Cochran, who is a Republican, and Democrat Kizzy Fowler.
Well, the Democrat isn't going to win, and we know how you feel about Greenwell. So there's the question right there. The question is, could Cochran actually beat out Greenwell? I don't know the answer to that question.
I just think that Greenwell and Miller will do everything to outspin and to disparage Miss Cochran. I want anybody but Greenwell, but I find it hard to believe that she's going, and especially with who her campaign manager is, because her campaign manager is basically in bed with this other group. So Missy Laster's her campaign manager. We all know she works with these other groups. How can Miss Cochran feel confident of having a fair election with that person as her campaign manager for her?
I'm going to have to take Alka-Seltzer before we end this podcast because this is getting a little bit crazy. Makes me wonder whether or not Cochran's getting good advice. Again, I want to see a good race. I want to see Lee County voters get out there in District 5 in particular and make the case. I mean, that's the point. I mean, this is, and I say this over and over, and people I'm not sure still get this. I know Terry Miller gets it. And that is the fact that the most important position you vote for in Lee County is your county commissioners, because these are the people, whether we have hurricanes, we have disasters, we have problems, they are the people that really control the county and are the closest to you in terms of your day-to-day lives.
And you saying that, and this is where I've got a lot of feedback from people saying, well, you know, Amanda Cochran, she really don't know what, she's never been faced with the things that they've been faced with the other commissioners like Greenwell with Ian and all this stuff. Well, none of them was faced with it until they had to set up on that board.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And remember, Greenwell was appointed. Okay, Greenwell was appointed. And then everyone's like, well, we're going to vote for him anyway. Look, I love Mike Greenwell as a baseball player. Lord knows I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. But when it comes to Mike Greenwell, the county commissioner, I got to raise a lot of red flags because I'm very worried that Mike Greenwell isn't working for District 5 in Lee County, but he's working for Mike Greenwell. And I challenge anyone to prove me I'm wrong.
And we've offered Mike Greenwell the spot to come on here and debate this with you before, and he's never accepted the challenge.
Look, I'm not picking. I want to be clear. I'm not picking on Mike. I'm a big fan of Mike Greenwell, the baseball player. Let me say that again. I'm just looking at Mike Greenwell's, record, and I'm looking at how Mike Greenwell responds to constituents in District 5. Because I know that a lot of people have reached out to Greenwell, and frankly, he just doesn't, he just kind of goes through the motions and does what's best for Mike Greenwell. That's how it appears.
Okay, let's go on to the school board. Now, in District 2, the incumbent, Melissa Giovanelli, a Republican, she's facing off with Carol France, which is a shock to me. I think Carol is Dr. France's daughter.
The eye doctor.
Yeah. And so, who is realistically, this is going to be interesting competition. Is mostly Giovanelli is lacking the courage to speak up against the establishment. She's proved she's weak, and she's as much as told me that she can't say. She's as much as told me personally that she don't say a lot of stuff because people won't vote for her if they are against her because of what she says. To me, that right there on the face of it is a coward.
My question to you, is Terry Miller involved with either of these two candidates?
I can't answer that yet.
Well, until I know the answer to that question, this could be a very, very competitive race, and probably one of the most competitive races, because I do know that the France family does have, how shall I say, some resources.
Right. And, again, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here. If Melissa had been a stronger candidate during her time on the dais, I would back Melissa. But currently, I don't know what France's position. I don't think that I'm happy with either candidate currently. And I don't dislike Melissa. I just think that she needs to stand up for what's right and not cow down to the establishment.
Well, we got 2 months. It's up to them to make the case. Again, I'm not telling anyone to vote for, who to vote for. I am just saying the following thing. Here's what I know about certain people, just as you're saying as well. You get to pick some of them that you like and don't like, but all I can say is that, again, I'm for the Lee County voters, and I'm for making sure Lee County is a better place to live.
Well, we'll move on over to the school board on the District 3 seat. Now, this seat has been held by Chris Patrica, who has unquestionably been the worst school board member in our history. And she's trying to pass the torch to a candidate who is ready for the geriatric board, Bill Ribble. Now, I was glad to see at the last minute he has an opposing candidate who I don't know a lot about, but I'm going to find out. His name is Caitlin Schofield. All I can say is anybody but Bill Ribble.
Well, let me ask you this. Is Caitlin a Republican?
Ford, I'm going to tell you, I'm not 100%. Like I said, I just got this info. I think she is, but I just got this information into me just as I looked at Tommy Doyle's site.
Well, here's all I'll say about that is that it seems that Bill Ribble is a perennial candidate, and he's looking for a position. That's pretty much, didn't he run for the hospital board last time?
He's like, okay. And now at large, District 7 on the school board, Vanessa Schiavano, the cabal choice, is opposed by a Democrat, Sheridan Chester, and I'm not familiar with her. I'm not real familiar with a lot of these Democrats. That to me, we're really got a bad pool of candidates when it comes to the school board.
I hear you on that, and the problem is when all there is the cabal's choice. I have to vote for the cabal's choice if I'm voting in that election. And that's exactly why the cabal clears the field for their candidate, because they don't want the voters to actually have a choice, because we know the Republican is going to win because we are in Lee County.
And the last candidate that's running for school board is going to be Joshua Melendez. In my opinion, I've talked to Josh a few times. He's the best option that we have on that school board. And I do hope that people will look into Josh. And if you feel like that you believe in him, please support his candidacy, because we don't really have much else. We've got a horrible board, and unless we get somebody from the outside, which I've been saying all along, to come into Lee County and dissolve this disaster, then we're just stuck.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why whenever people have challengers, that's why we're going down the list right now. The point is to make people know in some cases you do have a choice. So do your homework, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, and that's Team Lee County.
Well, now when we go to the school board superintendent, it's a given the establishment push to make sure Denise Carlin, Judge Carlin's wife, is the only Republican running. She is definitely establishment. She's facing two Democrats, who is Victor Arias and Sheridan Chester. Yes, the same person running for District 7. So they're running for school board and they're running for superintendent. I didn't know that you could run for two at a time.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's a new one for me, Joe. I will say this, that, I just don't want the Democrats to win. So, it seems to me that Carlin's going to get one heck of a pay raise.
Well, our sheriff, Mr. Carmine Marcino, has an opponent. He's facing Democrat Michael Hollow, and I don't see why Michael Hollow even threw his hat in the ring. I don't see him standing the snowball's chance in hell against Carmine.
Well, Joe, there's two things I know. Tomorrow the sun will come up, and two, Sheriff Carmine Marcino is going to win this race. So it's great that we discuss it, but let's be honest. I tip my hat to Carmine on so many things. Doesn't mean I agree with Carmine on everything, but I think that Carmine does a good job, and he's been one of the best sheriffs in recent memory.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree wholeheartedly. There's some things I don't agree with that Carmine's done. However, all in all, he's done real good going after the fentanyl crisis in our area and things like that. And I give him all the props for.
And the animal abusers. And the animal abusers. I think that's so important. And again, something I tip my hat to Carmine to. And I also say something else about Carmine. He's gotten really good with the social media, but I'll tell you, I've caught him on TV a couple of times recently, and he's done pretty good in those interviews, particularly on Fox.
Well, I think with time you get better with everything you do when you're doing speaking engagements, because it's, when you start doing it, you're worried about slipping up, and then when you kind of get your groove, you know how to flow with it and capture yourself before you make a mistake. And I think Carmine's at that level now.
The presentation, too, including the uniform. I just want to know where I get one of those for Halloween, because I'll be Carmine. How's that? I'll be a little tall, but, it'll work out.
And that being said, to Carmine, we have prayers for Carmine Sr. We know he's not doing good, and our prayers go out to Carmine Sr.
Absolutely.
Yeah. State committee man, what a craziness is going on here. You know, it come down to where it looked like it was going to be Andrew's son and I guess Mick Peters, who is also running for another position. That's two more. It's running for two spots. I don't know. Don't understand it.
Well, you can run for committee man and you can run for another position. That's allowed because committee man only represents within the Republican Party.
Well, in an attempt, now before Mick Peters got in there, in an attempt to stop Andrew's son, because everybody that I've talked to wants anybody but Andrew's son to be the committee man. He's just an angry young man that doesn't, he really has nothing to offer. And, you know, the thing that bothers me for it is Matt Caldwell wasn't going to run for committee man, told his name. So in an effort, I believe, to keep Andrew's son out from getting it, Cecil Pendergrass threw his name in the hat. Who was it given? There wasn't none of them going to beat Mick Peters.
Cecil's extremely popular. Cecil would have won.
He would have nailed it. But then I don't know why all of a sudden Matt Caldwell got, and this is what I was told, that Matt Caldwell got upset because somebody challenged him for property appraiser and he threw his name back in as for committee man too. And then all of a sudden Cecil withdrew. That's just, that makes no sense.
Oh, it makes sense if the whole point is to protect the team politically and making sure everyone has a seat when the music stops if it breaks the wrong way. The other thing that's amazing to me here is that when you look at Caldwell and Andrew's son, who is their chief ties to? Terry Miller. So guess what happens? Either way, Terry Miller wins.
I want to talk to you about something that's really bothered me. You know that I've been a long supporter of Byron Donalds. I've supported him from the very beginning. You know, I'm friendly with some of his people in his camp. He endorsed Dave Mullica. So I did make a phone call and ask, how could you, our congressman, who's for Florida, support someone like Dave Mullica, who has done such harm to our environment, and he's continued to do on. I mean, I've got all the dates up until 2023 where he continued, even after stop orders, to continue polluting our groundwater, and eventually, like I said before, the 10-mile canal to the Gulf. How could our congressman support somebody like this? It baffles me. I'm a little conflicted why anybody would support somebody that would destroy our Florida Florida. And the reason I brought this up is because if you remember back, Brian Wright, and I don't know if he's still running for anything. I mean, but he was. Brian Wright put out a great post about how his congressman Byron Donalds was supporting such a good family of conservatives. You know, here's you've got Jenna, you've got Armour, and now she married a conservative, Dave Mullica. Dave Mullica, Armour, or Jenna are not conservatives. They are liberals when they use the name conservative for their benefit, in my opinion.
Well, let me go to the Byron Donalds question. Look, that's above my pay grade. I don't know. Maybe it's politics. Maybe it's not. Again, I can't answer that question. But what does piss me off, besides you talking about exactly the bad things allegedly that Mullica's done to our environment in Southwest Florida, is one of the things that I don't like in politics is nepotism. And what you're getting here with Armour, Jenna, and her husband is you're just strengthening nepotism in Lee County. And my question to you is, what has Armour done well on the school board, or Jenna done well in her district, or for the state, that merits another person coming in under a family name? And in this case, remember, it's county commissioner, which is far more important than the position that Jenna and Armour hold, and yet somehow may find a way also to enrich himself.
And it's in the same district where he's dumped the toxic waste. It's the same exact district where he has done the pollution.
Again, this is baffling to me. People need to know that there is a choice out there. That is the whole point here. And people say they don't like nepotism, they don't like cronyism. That's all Lee County is right now politically.
Again, I just don't know if Brian Wright was sober enough to know what he posted or not. But I remember when Brian Wright called Byron Donalds and demanded his donation back because Byron Donalds supported somebody that he didn't like. I remember when Brian Wright done the same thing about the Reagan-Lincoln dinner to Mike Thompson. Brian Wright needs just to go on and drink yourself to death. And look, in my opinion, Brian Wright, you're a jackass. Sorry, Ford.
That's, again, that is Joe's opinion. I have to stay clear of each of the candidates.
Well, and in Collier County, I'm going to wrap it up with Collier County. Last night, they had a deal for Jim Molinar. I'm very upset. I had other things come up I couldn't attend. I do support Jim Molinar for property appraiser. I've said that before. I've endorsed Jim Molinar. I want to say that I also, in Collier County, I don't know who you're looking at, but I do like Pam Cunningham. I mean, I've watched this lady. She's everywhere. I mean, she is really, and I'm not talking about she's just everywhere to be showed. She's out there doing things with children and families. And I mean, I've talked to her. She's really a sweet lady.
Look, as you know, I do host a lot of and moderate a lot of the debates and discussions in Collier County on politics, or asked to do it quite often, many times this cycle. Look, I can't speak to this, but I can just say this. When it comes to Cunningham, I've only heard good things.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Ford, what else is going on with you?
Well, the key thing here is next week, we're going to get the ruling from the Supreme Court on the immunity case. That's going to back into the debate. I'm going to tell you next week may be one of the most consequential weeks in the election cycle. And frankly, we're going to need to take a breath. And thank God the 4th of July is right around the corner, my friend.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that the 4th of July is my anniversary. For those that don't know me and Miss Jessie, and I will tell you that every year, anybody that wants to come, we have a big parking lot party where people bring food. And the employee parking lot over at Seed to Table, where my wife and a couple of my friends will put on a hell of a fireworks display free to the public. So if you're in the area on the 4th, stop by and see us. We'll be over in the employee parking lot, which is on the other side of the road, Livingston. Is where the employee parking lot is. So if you get a chance to come out, there'll be a lot of fun, just people having a good time and watching the fireworks. You got any plans for the 4th, Ford?
I'm going to be with the family. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, up in New England and not in Florida. So I just hope I don't freeze my off.
Well, it's been warmer up north the last day.
Yeah, it has been, but I promise you, there is nothing worse than some of that fog and cold up in New England. But I'll say, this time of year, it's usually the most beautiful area in the country.
One thing I want to tell everybody, and I want to encourage you, that this Sunday at 4 p.m., there's going to be a meet and greet town hall sort of thing with Matthew Thornton, who is running against Dave Mullica, and it's going to be held at Johnny Malloy's. It'll start at 4 p.m. It's at Johnny Malloy's Sports Pub, and that is on Bonita Beach Road. It's a great place. I have to say that Johnny Malloy's is a place that me and my family, we do attend. They have great wings, and especially he does it on Sunday. I told him we were doing on Monday because their wings are only 50 cents. They're to die for, but it's going to be on Sunday. I encourage everybody to come out and see Matt Thornton. And the one thing, and Ford knows how important this is, these grassroots candidates are not using PAC money. They don't have big big investors behind them, and most of them are using their own money. Anything you can donate to these grassroots candidates, whether it be $25, $50, $100, whatever you can do, they need your support because they're going up against people that have PACs. They're going up against the Millerite candidates who will lie, cheat, and steal to get whatever they want. So I do encourage you, please donate to some of these grassroots candidates. Matt Thornton would appreciate your donations. I'm sure Amanda Cochran would appreciate your donations. But I do encourage you all. I mean, whatever you can do to help these grassroots candidates, we need change in Lee County. And the only way we're going to get change is if we eliminate the establishment. And it ain't going to all happen at once, but we need to start chopping at that tree a little by little. So do you agree that we need to have donations for the grassroots candidates forward?
Absolutely. I don't think people understand, one, how hard it is to step into the ring. I tip my hat even to the cabal candidates when they step into the ring. But when you're not an incumbent, as many of these grassroots candidates, frankly, none of them are incumbents, it's very, very hard to raise money. This is why incumbents typically hold on to their seat, because people either know who they are or they're preconditioned to vote for them. And when you're a challenger, it's truly an uphill battle.
I agree. I want to also mention somebody we didn't talk about. There's a young man running in Cape Coral for city council. His name is Craig Unroe. He seems like a very level-headed, nice guy. I like him. I encourage people to look into Craig Unroe and also Robert Sutter. We've had Robert on the show before, ex-military. He's a really good guy. Please look into some of these grassroots candidates. And I guess, Ford, until next time, I guess we're going to call it a show.
That's exactly right. But I'll say one thing. The test for candidates in Cape Coral is if they won't vote for a pay raise for themselves, then they may actually have my vote, even though I can't vote in Cape Coral. But you're right. Till next show, my friend.
All right, Ford. Thank you, my brother.